So our next speaker is a specialist in the field of luxury packaging, operating as an independent creative consultant, former director of packaging and design at Burberry in London. Spent 8 years at Burberry, set up the packaging team there, and notable achievements as one of number one British luxury brands, including Mamma mia, Lavelda, mamma mia. You know when your words get so twisted, they don't even come out right. Should I do that again? No. You understood? Was I speaking Lithuanian for a minute? Did I get it? Have I become multilingual? Right, let's do that again. So some of his notable achievements at the number one British luxury brand included fragrances of My Burberry and Mr. Burberry, both of which achieved top 5 ranking. Prior to working at Burberry, he's run his own business with his wife, producing designs for beauty brands, including Givenchy and Yves Saint Laurent. Ready for our next speaker? Sounds really exciting, right? Talking about what's in it packaging, what's in it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, please give an incredible, warm round of applause for Vincent Villeger.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. That saves me an awful lot of talking, this video. So I'm trying to figure out how to get on to the next slide. I'm going to go analog for a second. And really, can I have the next slide, please? I don't know if this is working. While we figure out the tech, I'm really pleased to be here. And really, this is your analog pause in what I'm aware is a very digital, tech-driven environment. So today I want to talk to you about something that is something I've been doing for 20 years and is really about one of the last remaining standpoints of physicality when it comes to brand. And so I'm going to talk about, hopefully, packaging, potentially without slides. Hey, let's see how well I know my stuff. And so really, one of the things that we think about packaging is the purpose of it. And a lot of the time, you have a box, and it manages to keep your product safe and delivered from A to B. And really, that should be all there is to it. Except we're really not quite content with that. You know, we're living in times now where we expect a lot more than that. We want a lot more from our packaging. And so really, the big question is why? Why? Oh, let's have it again. Can you do it? Why do we want our packaging to do more than just simply protect the goods and deliver them from A to B? So that's packaging that protects, but the expectation is that it does more. So the big question is why. And that's what I'm going to talk about, really. Why does design matter when it comes to packaging design? Well, it matters because shopping is an experience. We don't shop because we need stuff. We shop because of how it makes us feel. And the extensive study I've done has really mostly come from pretty women. And that's how we know that shopping is not about stuff, it's about people and how it makes you feel. And really my big message today, if you take one thing away, is that there is a lot more to designing packaging than printing graphics on a box. So the first thing really I want to bring to your attention is the question of what a box is for. And I've talked about protection, and that's the basic function. But if that's the environment in which your product operates, then it becomes about stand out and it becomes about selling. But if you work in luxury, as I do, then it really becomes about dreaming. And so the first job of a designer, packaging designer in luxury, is to create that dream. And again, the big question is why? Why do you need to create that dream? Well, you're really busy, you're creating a fragrance, you've got a business to run, you've got a product to launch, and that's quite a big job. Except the news is that you're not on your own, and there's a lot of people doing the same thing as you at the same time. And so if you want to achieve standout, you have to create that story and that dream. So the dream is important, and you do that via the story. And this is a very well-tested formula. I've taken a Dior example here, so not my work on this, but they take Natalie Portman, and she's a very talented actress, and she's a smart woman, and none of that really matters, because what matters is her ability to, in turn, be chic and adventurous and in love, depending on what product Dior is launching that week. So it's really about the dream. And so getting into the deconstruction of how you go about creating that is something I'm very proud to have invented, that I've called the dream bubble, because I think it's quite catchy. And it's really the idea that your story has to make sense across all of your touch points. So it's not just the packaging, but it's also your retail store, your point of sale. If any of these is missing out, your bubble bursts, your story is not believable anymore. So you need that consistency, is a really big word, literally. That's why designers are really painful when it comes to achieving consistent results, because I'm designing a bottle in London, the packaging is being manufactured in France, the point of sale might be made in China, and it's all being assembled in the Philippines. And the consumer in the Philippines doesn't know or care about the intricacies of our supply chain. They want to know that it all looks like a cohesive story. And so that story is important, and packaging is really a key medium when it comes to telling that story. Packaging is your voice, so you have to make sure you use it. In the example of Burberry, the story was very simple. It's about the product, it's about the trench coat. And so really, I set about developing a completely bespoke paper for the brand, so the material, and this is one of my favorite pictures ever. And you can see, I know it's sad, but you can see at the top, that's a piece of the fabric under magnification, and at the bottom section, that's the paper that I've developed. So it's really about getting involved and owning that brand story and finding the really, really simple shortcuts to be able to tell it effectively. So it's really simple. There's not a lot to it, but it's just a lot of work involved. And then you expand that to a whole palette of materials, because your bubble, not only does it need to work across all of your touch points, but it also needs to work across all your product categories. So if you're a brand that does clothing and eyewear and accessories and gifting and all of these, that needs to work across all of that as well. So that might mean you need more than just paper. You're going to need lots of more materials. And what that means is when you get a brief for a fragrance, which is as simple as design me a trench coat in a bottle, then you're equipped to do that. So you've got a very simple story. We've got 3 shades of trench coats that are key shades, and that allows you to neatly do the parfum or the toilette and an intense that covers the market. And you can carry that story through in your outer packaging as well, and you can really tell that story through small detailing like that. And then somebody says, we need one for China. And so that's fine, because you've kind of done that work of laying solid foundations for what your palette of materials was. You can just make a pink bottle which works for the Chinese market. And because you've got all of this set up properly, well, then all you need to do is make a pink trench coat to match the bottle, and you can make it work the other way around. So that's the campaign, and then you can add the trench coat on your website, and all of a sudden, rather than having trench coats that sell fragrances, you can also make fragrances that sell coats. So design rules. Designers love design rules. They love guidelines. There's a whole borderline fetishist community in the design world on guidelines, and so you get very expensive, very beautiful books like that produced. Look at that, how neatly that logo fits on the grid, isn't it amazing? And you know exactly what to do with it, except following the rules isn't what makes great creative work. Following the rules is what means your brand isn't going to derail, and you can kind of get other people to work on it and you'll be fine. But if your job is to drive design for a brand, you need to know the rules so that you can ad-lib, and that's where creativity comes in. So, for instance, probably my favorite piece of packaging I've done for Burberry probably breaks about every single brand rule in the guideline book. This was for a piece for Elton John record set. So luxury is I get asked how do you define luxury, because this is really where I operate, and I thought I'd better try and come up with an answer. So I've come up with an equation instead, and it's really the quality of the product has to be here. That's the underlying principle. But also you need a point of view. You need to be a leader if you're going to be a luxury brand. The consumer is evolving. The luxury consumer, 20 years ago, would have looked nothing like that. It's getting younger. The idea of what luxury is really broadening and opening up. So that's how brands who produce very classic products like this can afford and really benefit from creating also products like this. And the two kind of feed each other. But sustainability still matters in luxury. That's a big question at the moment, sustainability in packaging. And I'll not go into too much depth in it, but I want to say that it still matters in luxury. And there's a lot of development happening at the moment. So you can take all these disposable coffee cups and make beautiful, beautiful paper out of this. So if anybody in this room can remember 1995, at the time, choosing an eco material meant it had to be grey and brown with lots of dots in it because they weren't very good. Whereas now you can choose a material that will look just as good as a virgin material. So this is a jewelry box I've designed, and that's using that paper which is made from recycled coffee cups. Lots of development in the pulp world where we see alternatives. But really the main point I want to make on sustainability and luxury is that for me the biggest shift isn't so much a technical shift. Yes, we see developments. But for me, the biggest shift is really our ability as consumers to accept what luxury packaging should look like. And this notion of what luxury packaging should look like is getting broader and broader. So all of a sudden, we see, so this is not my work, but a great brand, great guy, and they've done great work in that field. And you can use innovative packaging techniques, and they may not look really pretty, but actually it's accepted. We're able as consumers now to accept this as luxury packaging because of all the context we have. So that's a really important shift. You're a digital crowd, so I thought I'd talk about the specificities of packaging for digital commerce. And you remember that picture, the idea that surely if my T-shirt that I've bought online comes in a brand box and it gets to me and it's not damaged, that's all I want, yeah. Except remember, it's not. And packaging, the thing about packaging is, if you're a bricks and mortar business, so if you have lots of shop, it's a key physical touch point. And we know now that that's a very traditional form of transaction. You go into a shop, you buy something, but now you have lots of transactions that will combine both. So you may try something in a shop and then go and buy it online. So it's really important for all of your channels, so your website and your store and your packaging, to talk to each other and to get that sense of cohesiveness. So if you've got a bricks and mortar business, packaging is a key physical touch point. If you're an online business, it's your only physical touch point. So if you sell goods direct to consumer on your website, your packaging is the only chance your consumer will have to experience your brand in a tangible way. So think about that. And so it's probably one of the reasons why we've seen the best examples from brands that were online-only businesses. And It's really important because if you think of a transaction as a very simple, I exchange goods, I give you goods, and you give me, I give you money, and you give me goods. In a shop, that all happens in one single moment. But if you buy online, there's a gap between the moment where you make the transaction and the moment you get your hands on the goods. And that gap creates an opportunity for a challenge. Was I right to spend £500 on a pair of shoes? Do I need another coat? All of these things. And so packaging has a job to do. The role of packaging when you receive your goods is to bring you back in the mindset that you were in when you made the decision to purchase. And that's really important because what that leads to is not only do you not return the item, you keep it, but also retention means you're likely to then go and shop again. So if you think about the cost of hiring new customers all the time because everybody's disappointed in their packaging, that becomes a marketing cost. But actually, that means your packaging becomes a marketing budget as well, rather than just a purely cost. So my big message is really to not think about the cost of packaging, but really think about the value. There are many opportunities. One of the opportunities is, as I said, to add value. So if you think about a retail brand and you have lots of shops all around the world, if you want to create value, you have to replicate that value-adding operation across all your stores. So if you want to do monogramming, you have to get a monogramming machine and train the staff in every one of your stores. Whereas online, you might have one or maybe 2 or 3 distribution centers. It's a lot easier to replicate, and all of a sudden, you're able to, to provide value-added services that can be really supported with packaging. Social media is another opportunity. I've got a quick example of an influencer looking at a piece of packaging I'd done.
This is from my appointment today. I wanted to show it to you. So I went to Vashi, which is a really cool concept store. It's like a bespoke jewelry shop. Sorry, I want to show you the packaging. How pretty is this? It's all orange and navy, and then inside you get your orange suede. Isn't that cool? Little box. And it says underneath, I made this for you, which is so cute. Because basically their concept is to make bespoke jewelry more approachable.
So in the space of 10 seconds here, she's picked up on all those design clues that I have built into that box. The colors, the texture, the little detailing, all of that experience. The way that this is making her feel it hasn't happened by accident. She feels like that because that's how I wanted her to feel when she opened the box. But there's also risks if you don't do it right. If you ignore everything I've said so far. One of the things to remember is that retail packaging is not digital packaging. So you may have spent a lot of time and money and effort making beautiful, beautiful packaging for your stores, but you have to remember that on .com at Christmas, your distribution center will look like this. So, it's important to remember that and to design for the correct life of the product. And then social media is a form of communication, therefore it works both ways. I've got a couple of quick videos of someone called Robin, and this was like a month ago, so I don't know how many views she's got now, but significant. And she went to buy a scarf in our London stores, in the Burberry London stores, and she didn't like my packaging one bit. So this is very painful for me, quite cathartic. I hope you appreciate me taking you on this journey.
Hi everyone, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. So I started to film this whole unboxing thing and was so horrified by the quality of the wrapping by the item that I'm going to show you that I actually had to stop because I can't even. So I'll kind of start over. And so it's a more of a reveal, I guess, at this point, because the unboxing was literally such an anticlimactic experience. The video, I paused and looked at you guys, and you deserve better than what it just happened. So I'm starting over. Okay. So
I've got another short clip. She goes on for 8 minutes. I'll spare you the 8 minutes. I'll spare myself the 8 minutes.
That was my experience today. And I will say that the difference in experience between both Chanel and Louis Vuitton versus Burberry was the details. The details of Chanel and Louis Vuitton in the way they wrap, in the way they present to you, is leaps and bounds above Burberry. I don't know if it's a French thing versus like an old British brand, but what I can tell you is the experience, here's what it is. The experience of buying my scarf was not as special as receiving a free replacement dust bag from Louis Vuitton. And
That's enough of her, I think. And range design is also, so this is what happened, by the way, if you don't get it right, no pressure. Range design is another challenge, you know. If this is your product and your range of products looks like this, and you're able to say something like this on your website, then yes, you can come up with a packaging solution that makes sense to your consumer. But you know, when your range of products is a lot more broad and your range of packaging is a lot broader, then that becomes a lot more difficult. So you get things like that happening. And you know, having worked with distribution centers, I can see how something like that will happen. It does not make sense to a consumer. You can rationalize it, not to say that it makes it right. But the point is, you know, your consumer will not know or care about your logistical difficulties. So worth bearing in mind. So really, the successful packaging design has to operate at that tiny intersection between what the business needs, what the brand wants, and what your consumer expects. So that's a constant juggling act. And on top of that, you know, we live at the moment at a time where consumers' expectations change all the time, you know, monthly, weekly almost. The things that you expect from your packaging now, I bet you are very different to the things that you were expecting even 3 months ago. So really, that little target in the middle just keeps moving, as if that wasn't quite difficult enough. A quick word on packaging and technology, again, which I felt was right for here. The upshot is that I'm not really a big fan of technology in packaging. I think, you know, I like that packaging is almost a tech-free zone. You know, I think we need a bit of that in our lives. And what is lacking from a lot of the examples I've seen is purpose. So yeah, you see examples that you can scan a QR code and you get more information about the brand, and it's like, so what? You know, you can get some good PR stunts out of it. But really, the thing to bear in mind is your tech needs to serve the needs of the consumer, not the ego of the brand. And so it's really going back to that notion of value for packaging. And there's good examples. You know, you get digital printing technology that allows you to have, like, every bottle in this example, like every bottle is a unique artwork. This was a really good example where the agency decided to use the day's front page as an artwork for the coffee packs, just to prove that the coffee was fresh, so it had been packaged on that day. So you get really nice creative examples. And I like this one. This is an invention where this label, when the food is off, becomes bumpy. So it's, instead of relying on the sell-by date, you rely on the physical clue of the packaging and the tech that's inside to tell you how good your food actually is. So you save a lot on waste and food waste and everything. Incidentally, that's the invention from one of my friends who's from Lithuania, so well done. How you do it? I get asked all sorts of questions about how do you do it, what software do you use, and all that. And really, I found this quote that explains it really well from one of my favorite photographers, Don McCullin. And it says, "The photographic equipment I take on an assignment is my head and my eyes and my heart." In other words, it's really not the camera that takes the picture. And I feel exactly the same about design. I don't design with Photoshop. You don't design with a computer. You design with your brain. And you can see, you know, like from a very, very early sketch that I did on that project to what the end result is, you know, it's all there. You don't need the jazzy tech. Yes, it helps and it serves a purpose, but it's not, it's not how you design. It's how you communicate. And then I get asked about inspiration as well. That's a really favorite with the journalists. You know, where does your inspiration come from? And really, the answer is I like quite random things. I like to surround myself. In my studio, I've got bits of. So I found this in the street by my house. A bit of metal. This was like a clip that left an imprint in a piece of suede I had at velvet I had. So it can be the most random things. Beautiful rock. Don't you love rocks? You know, old books, things like that. The point is really that you should look at your sources of inspiration as unrefined sources. If you just look on Google and Pinterest, it's already been through so many people's brains and processes that it really becomes irrelevant. You know, if I design a perfume bottle, the last place I want to look for inspiration is other perfume bottles. And it's really important to remember that packaging is a three-dimensional discipline. So in case I haven't made that message clear, there is more to designing packaging than printing graphics on a box. I think I'll make a t-shirt of this because I really like it. So things like structure, and I talked about this example, you know, but I've designed others. So it's about how you create anticipation and reveal. You know, this was for a trench coat that might have cost £9,000. So you want to build that excitement when you open it. So it's looking at structure, but it's also looking at what materials you have. This is my material library in my office. You know, you can create bespoke, but also you can use incredible materials, whether it's suede or book cloth or metal. So that, you know, it's about pushing what, you know, the advantage of it being a physical thing, something you cannot do on an iPhone screen. This is also a great opportunity for me to show off that I've done stuff for the Queen, you know, mostly. And then processes, you know, like why print when you can laser engrave? You know, why just do a normal embossing when you can facet it? So it's about always thinking that little bit further, you know, not being lazy with it. And thinking about the value adding that you can do. So whether it's limited editions or monogramming like I've done on this, or using packaging to create a real retail experience. So the dream is all well and good, but really what the job is, what my job is to turn that dream into reality. So origination is everything I've talked about so far. You know, the story you're going to tell, the concept that you're going to do, you know, that's all great, and that's typical designer stuff. But really, production, the bit that comes after that, matters just as much, if not more, to me. You know, is the color right? You know, like, is the materials going to be the right materials? Is it made in the right way? Is the standard correct? So you know, you have to do the work. You have to get your hands dirty. So this was matching a color. So you might look at this and think, oh yeah, well I've done my work here. I've matched that color. You know, this is my color reference. This is the paper. It's all great. Same thing. But have you looked at it under every light source? Because, you know, if you take it outside, it will look completely different. You know, so it's really about putting your name to it, making sure that you're not just in the office deciding that it should be Pantone 369. It's about being on the floor of the factory, making sure that it comes out the right color. You know, is that foil application good enough quality? You know, does it bleed? Is it sharp? Is it nice? Is the pressure on the machine the right pressure? Can we push it more? You know, is this shade of black the correct shade of black? Would you sign that off? Or does it need to be a little bit more green, or a little bit more red, or a little bit more dense? You know, there's a level of depth that you need to go on. And I thought because you're a tech crowd, you might appreciate a bit of vintage Steve Jobs. So here's a quick video from that great Lost Interview file document, which I'm sure a lot of you will have seen. And this is Steve Jobs talking about product development. So the question to him is, what is it that's important about product development?
It's the disease of thinking that a really great idea is 90% of the work. And that if you just tell all these other people, you know, here's this great idea, then of course they can go off and make it happen. And the problem with that is that there's just a tremendous amount of craftsmanship in between a great idea and a great product. And as you evolve that great idea, it changes and grows. It never comes out like it starts, because you learn a lot more as you get into the subtleties of it. And you also find there's tremendous trade-offs that you have to make. And as you get into all these things, designing a product is keeping 5,000 things in your brain, these concepts, and fitting them all together in kind of continuing to push to fit them together in new and different ways to get what you want. And it's that process that is the magic.
So 1995, I was great. I thought it was great when I found that clip, because it's what I've been banging on about for years, and he's just putting it into words for me. So that was great. So that's great. You've done your production, and you've been at the factory, and you know that what you've made looks like what you had in your head. But then, you need to then launch it globally. And there's another thing. You mustn't drop the ball there. So, if you take this example, I designed Burberry Body, and I designed the box, and I designed the bottle, but I also designed all the POS for it, so the windows, and it's not just that. Like there's probably about like 35 different components that you need to design in order to launch a fragrance, if not more. And not only do you need to design them and make sure that they're made correctly, like I've just explained, but then you need to explain it to people, because again, the guys in the Philippines that will build the stand need to understand how you want it, And then you have to review what they've designed and tell them why what they've done maybe isn't correct. No, this is not like page 35. So it's real tough, like dirty work to launch a fragrance. And that's where that consistency really comes into play. That's why it matters so much. And one of my takeaways in that respect is really that it's not about what I design, it's about what we make. That's the bit that matters. The super nice concept that lives on my Mac, nobody will ever see it. What people will see is what's on the shelves. So I've explained the dream and I've explained the reality. And really the challenge is to understand both and to have as tight a gap as possible between the two. So your reality is about your brand values, and do you want disruption? Do you want standouts? What do you express? The reality is a lot more boring, if we're honest. It's about the margins and distribution and your supply chain and the calendar and all of these things. And it comes back to this, matching the, what the business needs, what the brand wants, and what the consumer expects. But I don't want to come across as if that's just one big constraint and it's all difficult and isn't it just a pain? Because actually, it's what's great about the job, and it's a source of creativity. So, for instance, this is a design I did with my wife back in 2008. So it's a more than 10 years old design, and it's for a refillable bottle. And the original idea was that you were going to use the perfume, and then the bottom part of the glass you would just throw away, and then go and buy another one, and then clip into the top. And we felt like that just didn't, this was 10 years ago, it didn't feel right. So then we changed it to kind of have a much more like food-inspired refill that, that has come from the food sector. So looking sideways is really useful. All these constraints are sources of creativity. So really that's kind of me. And so the one thing I want you to take away is this: there is more to designing packaging than printing graphics on a box. So I hope that I'm more used to speaking to crowds that deal with packaging. And one thing I was really looking forward to today was talking to people who maybe don't get involved in packaging on a daily basis, because maybe it's an opportunity for everyone to look at how some of this might apply into what you guys do. So I hope you've found a couple of points here that you might remember and that you might find interesting, and if you have just like subtle hints of maybe how you can help me. Thank you very much.
Woohoo! Ladies and